Nobody's on yet. What's going on?
I'll watch it. Just protect people out.
Somebody whose name I can't pronounce just said, I'm a fan. Hey, I'm a fan too. Thanks. Sorry, we're just had a mess up with, you can see Karma's kind of banging the keyboard, shaking the screen right now. For some reason, we couldn't go live with the link that Karma had left, so we had to do this new one. So where am I looking? Okay, camera's right there. Sorry. Never done it on an iPad before. So is everything going to be backwards when it's on my front facing? Is it backward to you?
I have no idea just yet.
Hey, Michael. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm using these. Hey, Jose. Sound okay, everyone? Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. Hey, I want to thank you for jumping in on this. This is, being that it is New Year's Day, 2021. I really think about that to say it right. And for many of you, you've had a rough 2020, right? I don't have rough years only because I don't look at it that way. I just look at it as a challenge that I need to deal with. And 2020 to me was not much more challenging than any other year. Now, I understand it could have been challenging for the business. Hey, Sarai. Hey, Sarai. Sarai's actually a student of mine. Hopefully we see you back soon. But it's a challenging year in some ways, but really, as human beings, we just have to adapt, right? You just kind of have to see what your opportunities are and go after them. And that's no different than our training every year, because, or even every day when you're in a studio, because there's gonna be somebody who's got your number that day, right? That old hammer and nail analogy, right? Some days on the nail, some days on the hammer, right? And those days that you're the nail is when you're tested, and you have to figure out what goes wrong and you have to fix it. For many people, 2020 was the year of the nail, and the year is just getting hammered on you. So a lot of people just say to themselves, I can't wait till 2020 is over. But in reality, don't look at it that way. Just look at it as another day, and tomorrow's going to come, and for most of us it will, right? Some of us know. But when tomorrow does come, you're going to have to deal with it just like you would any other day. So let's not think about bad years or anything. A bad year is what you make it. If it's a bad year, it's because you made it a bad year. But if you always think of it as a good year, a good day, a good minute, then it'll always be good. Now, it's just how you look at it. So if I'm getting beat by somebody all the time, I can look at it as, man, this guy just beats me all the time, and I can't beat him, and he's just better than me. Then yeah, I'm just gonna get hit left and right, and I'll never get better. But on the other hand, if I look at it as, okay, well, he beat me with an armbar today. What can I do to make it so he doesn't get me with the armbar next time, right? And if you can think in those ways, then you'll never have a bad day on the mat. You'll never have a bad day, a bad month, a bad week, or a bad 2020, right? So, but here we are in 2021. 2020 is in the past. Now let's kind of move forward. So what can we do to make our year going forward a good year? Well, first thing is you need to find a vision of what you want to do. Right? Many of you saw the video that we put up last week, and it had to do with motivation versus drive, right? That's a very key component you need to think about as you're putting together what you want to do for this year, right? That whole resolutions thing, New Year's resolution, that's such an old cliche already. And what we want to do is we want to just think about what we want to do tomorrow, what we want to do next week, next month, next quarter, and by the end of the year. What do I want to achieve? Now, once you find your vision, sorry, I'm just kind of going through here, you need to follow it. So an easy way to do it is just simply write it down, right? Now, I'm both, that's my dogs. Sorry. You can tell that we're in a house right now. So um, when you have that vision and you decide you want to follow it, you have to be not only motivated, you have to be past motivated, like the last video. You have to be driven to achieve it, but you need to see it first, right? For some people, it's different. You actually mentally picture it. For some people, you just write it down. You just see the words, and the words will get you in that direction. Other people, you just need to kind of envision, whatever way works best for you. You know you better than I know you. Now, I wish I knew you. If I knew you better, then I'd kind of tell you what I think would work for you. And but you need to be determined. And the easiest way to be determined is you don't forget. You actually write it down. So I'll give you an example. When I'm thinking of topics to do for videos, I could be driving my car, right? A lot of you have seen my videos in my car. I get a lot of thinking done when I'm driving. I don't play the radio, or sometimes I'm listening to another YouTube video or a book, or sometimes I'm just driving along and thinking. And if I get a thought, hey, the subscribers on the channel would really love to hear about this. What I'll do is I'll just pull my phone out and I'll just hit the video camera and I'll just record. I'll do a video of myself. Well, actually, not myself. It's usually a video of my my AC controls in the truck, but I'm talking to it. And I'll just say, Ryan, do a video on blah, 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 blah. Because if I don't put it down on video or on sound or something where I can go back to it and refer to it, I'll get to my destination and I'll go, whew, what was that topic again? I'll forget it. So for you guys, the first thing you need to do is write your goals down. They can be a diverse set of goals. It could be career goals, it could be family goals, it could be life goals, it could be jiu-jitsu goals, it could be workout goals, it could be anything. Maybe you want to be able to run a mile in under 7 minutes, which is very fast, by the way. But let's say you're doing it at 9. But if you keep writing it down, if you write it down and you keep looking at it and you keep posting your progress on it, then you'll at least get in the same direction. You may not be able to break 7 minutes by the time the year is up, but you'll get there eventually if you keep trying. And at least you'll see, okay, well, I was at 10 minutes when the year started, and here I am, December 31st of 2021, a year from yesterday. I'm now at 7 minutes and 10 seconds. So you can see you made the improvement, maybe you didn't hit the goal you wanted. So just move the goal over to next year. So now for jiu-jitsu, it could be, well, I'm not really able to choke people out on the guard, right? That's a common one. With today's jiu-jitsu game, everybody wants to sweep from the guard. Everybody plays an open guard, and they don't ever play a closed guard. With us, we play a closed guard unless you make me play an open guard, then I'll play an open guard. And what you want to do is you want to make sure, at least for me, and I tell our students here, is you want to be in a closed guard. You want to have that hand in the collar and that hand behind the elbow, right? From there, you can set up your choke, you can set up your arm bar, and you can set up your scissor sweep. We do scissor sweep for white to blue belt. As we get deeper into the ranks, then that's when we start to introduce some new sweeps. But maybe you're pretty good at sweeping right now, white belt, blue belt, whatever you want. But somebody were to tell you, Ryan, I want you to armbar somebody today from guard. You're like, I'm not very good at that. And all right. And what are you going to do? You're going to end up sweeping them anyway. And you go, damn, I didn't get to do it. Why? Because you need to work on it. Write it down. And just every day, it could be in your gym bag. It could be on top of your gym bag. You put on a little piece of paper and duct tape it to your bag, so you can see it every day. Armbar somebody from guard today. Armbar some. So every time you look at your bag, I'm going to armbar somebody from guard. And then what you do is you work on armbarring people. You can sweep well. So if you can sweep well, why even bother? Try to armbar somebody, right? Eventually you get really good at it, and then you're going to go, do I ever choke anybody from guard? I kind of don't. Then what are you going to do? Rip that old armbar from guard label off, and you're going to put a new one on that says choke from guard. And then what will happen is before you know it, you'll be choking everybody, you'll be armbarring everybody, and you'll be sweeping. You'll be doing it at will. You can just go in my mind. It's like, what do I feel like doing? I'm going to choke you. Boom, choke, done. Or I'm going to take your arm. And you can even start telling people, like I've done in other videos, one way to make sure that you get really good in an environment where people aren't better than you, which happens a lot. People are, in a remote part of the country and it's just you and a couple other people, and you introduce jiu-jitsu to them, even though you're a blue belt, say, they're brand new. I mean, you're going to crawl all over them, but you need to find a way for you to improve too, in addition to kind of helping them along the journey. Just tell them, don't let me armbar you. And then you just work and work and work because they don't want to let you have it. You teach them how to defend it. You still got to take it anyway. That's a good thing to do. So that's your vision, right? So find your vision, whatever it is, and just follow it, but be driven to follow it. Don't just be motivated, right? Um, Before I go on to number two, are there any kind of quick questions here that I can possibly answer? Um, I see there's like 36 of you on here right now. If there are any questions, you can pop them in. I might see them, I might not, but Karma's on the other side of the table right there, and he can easily let us know if there are any. But this is a good place for me to start, and I'll just stop after every single bullet point I have, and I'll just see if there are any questions. If you have any, you can just shoot them up, or when I say, you can go and shoot them on there. So, point number two, as far as being successful, and you're thinking about it for this year, is always think big. Don't think small, think big. Now, you have your, is there a particular resource I should focus on since I'm only a month in? Are you training at an academy? Or do you have a place to train? If you have a place to train, well, as you're thinking as far as resource. Okay, good. So you're talking resource as in place to learn from in addition to where you're training, or are you thinking of concepts like I just discussed, the armbar, the choke, and the sweep from the guard? Um, because if you're looking for a resource, then Kama Jiu-Jitsu Online is as good as anywhere I've seen. Um, YouTube knowledge or just academy training. Okay, so YouTube, you can get some stuff. Here's my problem with YouTube or learning from YouTube is that everything is on YouTube. And when everything is on YouTube, you don't really have a methodology. You just kind of look, you'll see 20 different ways to pass guard. It's like, well, which one is right for me? Who knows? So what are you going to do? You're going to try all 20 of them, or maybe try five of them, and you're going to realize that they all don't work for me because you don't have all the ins and outs of that particular guard pass on YouTube. But the best part about YouTube is it's free, and that's why a lot of people want to learn stuff on YouTube because it doesn't cost you anything. Whereas if you were to go on to say Kama Jiu-Jitsu Online or any other online sites, you're going to have to pay. But at least on Kama Jiu-Jitsu Online, there is a methodology to the way we do things. So, we do show you what you need to know at this stage, and we teach you how to work on it and get better at it before we move you on to the next thing. Whereas you're not managed like that on the YouTube lesson plan, for instance. Now, some things, granted, I've learned a lot of things off of YouTube, no doubt. But as far as jujitsu, it's very hard. But as far you can use them as a resource. You can get everything on YouTube, everything, almost everything. But there are also other vendors as well. When you train to improve, what's your mindset? How do you train? So when training to improve, you have to get your mind in an improvement mindset. Now, what is that exactly? You cannot be in the mindset of having to win all the time because winning doesn't improve you. Winning just validates you. However, losing, I'm not saying intentionally lose, I'm saying that whenever you do lose, where you don't want to go is you don't want to validate the loss by saying, "Oh man, I suck," or "I'm a loser," or "How come I can never get this guy?" That's a loser mindset. In which case, you'll never improve on it. However, if you lose, then you go back to the guy who got you and go, "Okay, how did you get that on me?" Right? And they're gonna go, depending on how helpful they are, they just go, "Oh, I just did this and this." Okay, I get that you did that. Where did I go wrong for you to be able to do that? Oh, okay. So when I put my weight over here, you put your weight over there, which then led me to this, and that's how I got it. So go back and drill it and say, let's do this again. But this time, you have to think to yourself, I'm not going to put my weight in the wrong spot. I'm going to put my weight in another spot. And I just say another spot because another spot could still be wrong, but a third spot could be the correct one. You really don't know until you figure it out. Then every time I'm in there, I got to get to that point. I got to put my weight there. So that's the mindset you need to have. You're always, so if I'm good, if I catch you, if I beat you, then I have to think to myself, okay, how do I improve from the point where I won? Now I need to now I will tell you what I did. Um, what's my views on Hickson's online academy? It's awesome. I mean, he's my grandmaster. So, um, and in fact, earlier this month in December, Master Dave and me were actually meeting with Hickson. We had a 2.5 hour meeting with Hickson when I was in California, and we talked about some future direction that he wants Jiu-Jitsu to go on. So, yeah, whatever Master Hickson does, or as I call him, Grandmaster, because in my mind he's the Grandmaster of all. But yeah, it's stuff that you need to learn But we take whatever he does show us, and we like to compile it in a way that seems to work best for our students. But the information is the same, right? There's no difference in what he teaches versus what we teach, or at least what we try to teach, because Hickson is, he's on another level with regard to his thinking, especially with regard to jiu-jitsu. And in fact, I can kind of tell you, he was just working on simple base with me when I was there meeting with him, and he would tell me, no, Ryan, and he'd kind of move me, and yep, I'd fall over. And he'd tell me, okay, I'm going to back up. He goes, base again. So I base, and I think I have base. As far as I know, I have base. He looks at me, he goes, your right foot, move it 1 inch to the right. Seriously? He goes, watch. And he moves me and I fall out. He goes, okay, go back, move your foot 1 inch to the right. I do. All of a sudden I have the base. It's amazing. So it's, trying to teach what he teaches, it's incredible. Now, the online academy, yes. I mean, it's, you can't do any better if you have Hickson in your corner. The hard part about it is there's so many details and there's so many little minute micro adjustments he can make that um, it's it takes a while to learn his system. It's not the easiest system to learn, but once you do learn, in my opinion, it's the best that you can possibly learn. Let me move on. Okay, about never thinking small, always think big. Right, that's point number two. Right, first one is find your vision and follow it. Number two is think big, because if you think big, then you can always look past. Um, you can always look past what you have today. If I want to go to that fence over there, which is right outside there, I can't be focusing on what's right here, right? I have to look at the fence. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head toward there. Now, as I head toward there, I may be blown off course, but I still need to head there, right? And that's a big vision for me. Let's say I can't walk at all, but I decide I'm going to get there somehow, right? So, I'm going to be, think. So when I say think big, let's say just jujitsu terms, as far as your training partners, right? Just say I want to be, of all the blue belts. Let's say you're a white belt. Of all the blue belts, my big goal is to be better than all the blue belts. Now you may think that's not a very big goal, being that they're just one belt ahead of you, but it's big enough. For you to be able to beat all the blue belts while they're all progressing as well, means you have to accelerate your progress faster than they're improving. So think big in that way. Think I'm going to be the best blue belt here, right? But just always realize that you're always gonna be getting beat by them. In which case, you're going to now think back, how did you beat me, and ask them, right? If they're not going to tell you, they're not worth training with, right? But everybody, as everybody I've met training jujitsu over the years, right? Not when I first started. When I first started, you ask somebody how they beat you, they go, I don't know, right? They'd be lying out of their ass for that. But here everybody's no, I want to show you. Here, let me show you how I beat you, and they beat you, and they'll do it again, and until you get it, and they're like, good, I'm happy for you, and then now you move on, right? But once you beat everybody, all the blue belts, you'll be well into blue belt by that time. If you're a white belt, if not, you'll be earning your blue belt, provided you hit all the criteria, right? But that's a good sized goal. Now, the short term goals to get you to that big goal of being the best blue belt in your school would be to make sure that your positioning is correct, make sure your guard passing is good, make sure you can hold them out well, make sure you can set your submissions in right, make sure you can finish. All those things are the little goals that get you to the ultimate goal of being the best blue belt. Now, everybody's going to say, well, I want to be a black belt. Well, if you're your first year in jiu-jitsu, a black belt on average is a 10 plus year goal. That's too big, right? Think smaller, think lesser. Don't think I want to get my blue belt. That's not a good goal to have, right? A belt is not a good goal, because what happens is once you hit your goal, then you kind of get deflated, like, oh, okay, I hit my goal, I got my blue belt. More often than not, you're going to start entertaining thoughts of quitting because you hit your goal, right? Your goal is not to be a belt. Your goal is to be what the belt entails, right? So like I said, you want to be the best blue belt. I'm already assuming I'm getting the blue belt, whatever. My goal is not the blue belt. My goal is to be the best blue belt there is, or better than all the blue belts. Do I teach Baron-Bolos? Nah, I play around with it though. It's not that fun to me, especially once I hook the leg in and somebody twists my ankle with the way we counter it. But so yeah, I know that was a joke, but yeah, it is kind of funny when you think about it. But that's how you think big but you have to operate every day small, right? But just don't think too big. That's it'd be nice, and I can tell you, as somebody who's been a black belt for 9 years now, it's really not that big a deal, um, because if I put a white belt on, I'm still a black belt, right? Um, so like I said, don't make the belt your focus. But everybody's going to fall into that trap. You really have to try to focus on not doing that and focus on the things you need to do, not the things you need to get. Okay. Any questions so far? I know that there might have been a few that passed over. Karma, you got any that
The Pimp was asking, I was planning on visiting some friends in Austin, Texas. Do you have any no-gi days that I can pay for a drop-in class while I'm there? I do not see any on your website.
our nogi, we go with seasons, so we don't have nogi days. We're on nogi season beginning June 1st. So if you're around June 1st through August 31st, we're nogi every day. But as far as no gi days when we're wearing our gis, no. I mean, we wear the gi for 9 months and we take it off for yeah. So any other questions? All right, you got anything else, Carl?
Yeah, one person just asked, how much for a private with you personally?
It depends on you. So I don't actually have a rate that I do have. I have a lot of people that I teach privates to, and it depends how long they've been with me. Um, and they all have different rates. So um, now let's go on to number three. Ignore the naysayers. So if you have as a goal and you set your goal, one good thing to do is to, number one, write it down. Number two is to tell everybody that this is your goal. And number three is to just ignore people who tell you, you can't do that, right? If you as a white belt, you say, I want to be the best blue belt. Then if somebody tells you, forget it, you'll never be the best blue belt, just ignore them. Um, Yeah, we actually do have loaner geese in the studio. And yeah, I competed geez, way back when. I competed when I competed once for the Gracie Academy. I competed a couple of times for Hickson, and I competed once or twice when I was at Kenny Gabrielson's. Um, yeah, one time it was so bad that after my match, I won the match. Hickson had to carry me off. I couldn't even walk off under my own power. And part of it was because it was so cold. It was during the winter. And that was back when, tournaments now, they pretty much run on the clock. When they tell you you're going to be on the mat at 11:25, you're on the mat at 11:25. Back then, they tell you be on the mat eh, around 11, and then you could be on the mat at 6 p.m. And that's what happened to me in that studio in that particular tournament. We're inside of a gymnasium. It was, I think, the first. No, I don't know. It was a Machado versus Hickson Association thing, and I remember going up against our best purple belt, and he was like a triangle master. He could set up triangles from everywhere. So I think I'd gotten out of 6 or 7 triangles, but by then I was spent. But then again, I was dehydrated because I had. It was probably a good 4 or 5 hours after my assigned time for my match until my actual match. And every time it's like, hey, how are we doing? And oh, you're gonna go on pretty soon. You're gonna go on. And then so what happened is I'm freezing in there. I'm wearing a gi. Everybody knows gis are not they're not very warm. So I'm using the bathroom, drinking water, use the bathroom, drink water, use the bathroom, trying to stay hydrated. And then after about 3 hours of that, I realized, you know what? If I'm gonna go at any time, I don't want them to yell my name and I'm in the bathroom. So I stopped drinking water. And yeah, I got in huge trouble that way. Ended up winning the match, but I was done after that. Fabio Santos was a ref, and Hickson literally carried me off of the mat, which was kind of a bummer because I beat their good guy, their best purple belt, in that match. But that was a prelims, and there was another one with the final, which I wish I had been on. But anyway, so that was a good match only because my mindset was, he's either going to have to choke me out cold or he's going to break my arm. Really, that's what it was. And when you go, I'm not telling you to do that, but when you go in thinking like that, it's kind of hard to lose because you're not. It, yeah, it's yeah. Um, so let me kind of get back to it about ignoring the naysayers. Don't let negativity get into your mind. If somebody is telling you that it cannot be done, and realistically, yes, I can do it, just ignore them and just say, don't chew them out for being that way. They just are that way. Some people are just negative about everything, right? It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to just stay away from them, and but really that's what you kind of need to do. Or if they say, "Nah, Ryan, you can't do that," just go, "Yeah, you're probably right." In my mind, I'm thinking, "Nah, I'm going to do this," right? And sometimes what it does, it makes your resolve even better and even stronger. Happy New Year! Hey, Mike, one of our students in Irvine. But um, yeah, just don't let the naysayers tell you what you cannot do, right? Realistically speaking, if a human did it, you can do it. But that example I was talking about slam dunking a basketball, right? If it's a 10-foot net, yeah, I can't do it. Let's see, Ducky Frog. How should we train if we're going to sports BJ school? Please give me the mentality. There's a lot of value in going to a sports school. And you just asked me how do I train at a sports school? I mean, there's nothing wrong with training at a sports school if that's what you have access to. But if you have a self-defense mindset, I can tell you that, because I did train at a sports school for a while now, and not a while now, but a while, and it didn't really help me. I kept searching. I lost track of Dave Kama for probably about 15 years, and then I found him. Actually, one of my garage students that I teach privates to, he found Dave because I told him, yeah, I keep looking for this Dave Kama, and I can't find him. And then he eventually found him. And that's how I kind of got back with Dave. But it's hard to be in a sports school, and especially with the black belt teaching you stuff that you think about it. Well, I can actually get punched in the face when doing this, and I kind of don't want to learn it, but you kind of want to train too. um, what I would do if I were to do it all over again, I would just kind of, if Common Jiu-Jitsu Online weren't around, I'd find some kind of online curriculum. We got the Hickson Gracie Academy, um, and I just kind of watch his stuff. Now, sometimes you might be impatient because I'm trying to learn how to deal with this, but he's teaching that. Just take what he's teaching and just learn it, and just go on with the next thing or go on the next thing. Just master every lesson. And when you do it that way, even if you're in another school, use your other school as your training partners, right? I do have students that do come in from out of town, and they train at a sports school, but they come in, they'll let's say they'll buy a module, right? We have, if for those of you that are online on our website, you'll see that our lessons are put together in modules. So I might have somebody come in for the first time, they buy module one, and I work on, it's a 12-hour course basically, and it's just privates for 12 hours in the course of about a week, and we go over everything in module one. And they're now directed, right? I tell them, I go, for you to get your money's worth, because it costs a lot of money to do it, but for you to get your money's worth, you need to go back home to that sports school and you need to work on what we just worked on. So module one is getting out of mount class, escaping worst position, escaping side mount, the 3 different side mount escapes, and the 2 mount escapes, as well as seatbelt escape. So what I tell them to do is go back home and let everybody mount you, let everybody take your back, and just work to get out. Well, what if I get out? Well, when you get out, I want to get back on top. No, you're going to let them take it again. So if you don't act right, if you don't act it out well, they're going to know something's up. Why do you keep giving me your back? Why do you get on top and then just lay back? No, you let them pass, right? Or you let them get out and stuff, and you kind of give them a little bit of resistance. And when they get on top of you and they mount you, then think, okay, let me go back to the way Ryan taught me, or the way Dave Kama taught me. Let me do this escape, and then you then set up the hip escape or the UPA, and you start going through it. And that's the best way to do it. So I have students, like I said, they're in the sports school, and I just tell them, just work on the stuff that we're working on, right? Because you came to visit us here, and you trained, and you did this, you spent, all this time with us to learn how to do it. Now go back and use it there. Now, okay, what if the instructor there tells me, no, 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 you have to do it the other way? That's kind of a fine line you got to walk. But I would just tell them, just say, okay, just do it the way they tell you to do it. And when they're not looking, do it the way we showed it to you. But that's because you want to learn our stuff. Um, about doing an interview with Hickson. I don't know if it's going to happen. I had a good meeting with him, but it just, as far as filming it didn't really present itself as an opportunity. I'd like to, but the grandmaster, his time is very hard to come by. But anyway, and let's see. Now's a good time to break for questions if there are any. Let
There's
me
a
get
couple
it.
questions about schools. First question was, do we have a school in the LA area?
We have Orange County. Master Dave Kama is in Irvine, although California is technically on lockdown, right? But yeah, I mean, we do have a studio just outside of Irvine. It's in Laguna Hills, and Dave's always been in the Orange County area, and so we've kind of moved around in that area. But currently, we're in Laguna Hills. So yes, but not LA itself. We're probably never going to make it up to LA itself. We just don't have anybody out there that can teach over there, and also real estate's really high over there.
Second question was, do you have any plans for a school in Houston?
Houston is in the long-term plan. However, I don't have anybody right now to put there. Um, because you not only have to have a location, you have to have, if we're going to have a Kama Jiu-Jitsu owned school like we do in Austin, Flower Mound, Texas, and in Orange County, then we need to have a black belt or an instructor that is reasonably capable or fully capable to run a campus for us. Um, Houston, I'd love to have somebody there. However, none of our instructors want to move to Houston at the current moment. Now, one of them may get a job out there or may get relocated out there, in which case, yeah, I mean, I'd love to put one there. But, Ken relocated to Austin, which is why he's running our Austin campus. I'd like to also put one in San Antonio if we're talking about Texas, but I'd love to have one everywhere. So one of the things that we've done to kind of help with that situation is we've created the online academy, right? KamaJujitsuOnline.com. Now, how will that happen? Well, let's say you want to learn what we do and you want to learn the way we do it, right? And then what you do is you just get together with some friends of yours, get a group of you that have decided that you're going to make this your goal and you're driven to do it. And even though people are telling you no, not to do it, you're still going to do it anyway. And you take the lessons in little small pieces, knowing that you want to eventually go through all six. Okay, now you're together, you're training. What could happen in the end is you may have a good sized club, in which case now we send Dave over to you, right? Me give you a message and you say, hey, are you open to Dave coming out there? Let's say there's a bunch of you in that metropolitan area in Houston, right? That are subscribers to our website, and it would make sense for us to send an instructor over there to work with you guys periodically. And that could be a way to do it. And that way we don't necessarily have our own physical location in there, but we have a location through you where we have a bunch of like-minded people all training Kama Jiu-Jitsu. That would be incredible, by the way. And that was the reason for the website, is to set it up around the world. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just in Houston. It could be in Switzerland. It could be in Greece. It could be in Abu Dhabi. It could be anywhere. But it's just people who want to learn what we do and want to get together and work on it amongst themselves. And eventually, you bring more people in, and we can put together incentives to keeping everybody, on the same page. And by me having a lot of instructors, I think Dave and I, we have a total of maybe 15 instructors. I want it to get to a point where we're just sending people out every month, all over the world, just to go and teach you, right? Just to teach our members, right? Anyway, so that kind of worked into it. What's the next question?
Thinking of visiting and training with you. I'm a 56-year-old white belt, and I'm concerned on how much he can do in 7 to 10 days. Concerned about recovery classes that I will attend, privates, etc.
That's a good point you make. In fact, we just had two gentlemen come in from Wisconsin. They bought a 1 week pass. I mean, they just want to get out of cold in Wisconsin. Those of you who don't know Wisconsin, it gets pretty cold right now. So they made I think it was a 15-hour drive from Milwaukee to Dallas, where we are, and got themselves a hotel and stayed. And then they had 1 week passes and they trained every day. Now, one of them was, I think, 26 and the other was 34. Now, it depends on how hard you want to go. I mean, the 34-year-old especially was pretty good about kind of moderating what his expectations were. And, they didn't come to class more than once a day, because sometimes we have 2 and 3 classes in a day. And he trained only as hard as his body could handle. And he was good about saying, okay, I'm good for today. But they came away learning a lot. I mean, because everything that we did in class was nothing like they did in their current school. Now, I think it's good for the better, because it did give them a few more skills they can now take back there and use on the guys there, right? But But as far as their being able to handle it, it's, you bored on overtraining, but 1 week isn't really that bad. I mean, you'll go home sore, but just rest for a few days, and just know when to say when you're training here, and it'll be all good.
Couple other questions. You said before you're curriculum based. If you're midway through the curriculum and you get a new student, do they start from the beginning or do they start at the current point in the curriculum?
So that's a good question, actually. Since we do have a lot of instructors, usually in whatever class that brand new person comes in, we'll have one of the instructors pulled aside with them and any other people that are brand new and start from the beginning of the curriculum. And everybody else will just kind of continue on their own path. However, let's say it's only me teaching, or let's one of my other instructors teaching, and we're not able to break the class up. There's no logical way to break a class up. So when I say break a class up, so let's say we have 15 people in a class. If I could go 5 beginners, 5 people who are maybe a year in, and then 5 people who are color belts, right? That'd be a logical way to stop to break it up. In which case, I'll typically work with one group and then give them something to do, work with another group, give them something to do, and go back to the very beginner ones and work with them while I watch the other two. Now, it's not an easy way to do it, but it's something that I try to train our instructors to do. And it can be a challenging way to run a group class, um, but we do try to do it. Sometimes we have an overriding theme that we may want to work on, in which case anybody from the most beginner to the most senior will all work on the same thing. So I'll give you an example. The last 2 weeks in the Flower Mound campus, we've been working on takedowns and specific takedowns, and then sequences after that, right? So takedown to knee and belly to gift wrap to worst position. We can finish with a choke. We can finish with armbar. And then also when you get taken down, from the other perspective, taken down, get back to guard and lock the person up, and then but the thing is, those are themes that everybody needs to work on. So in those days, then it doesn't matter if you're first day. So in fact, we had one guy came in today, this morning. We had class this morning, New Year's Day, brand new, and we had another guy who came in, and it was his second day. So what I do is I had instructors kind of pair up with them and work on the takedowns with them, show them all the intricacies that we've been working on for the last 2-3 weeks. Won't necessarily get them up to speed, but it'll involve them, and that actually worked pretty well. So yes, so we do deal with people at different levels. We don't just make everybody, if you're on your first day, we don't make you deal with the most advanced concepts. We will kind of peel you off and work on the more basic stuff that you need to work on.
Um,
That's it.
no, we had a couple more. Have you tested, let's say, two blue belts, one from that was trained online versus one who trained traditionally, to see if the online training is effective and legitimate?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you asked that. I did very, being our site's relatively new. I do have a blue belt out on the East Coast who is the only person so far who's earned a Kama Jiu-Jitsu blue belt without physically being in the school. And he would come in, he'd spend a week at a time, and he would just train modules. So, we've done modules 1 through module 6. The trip that he came in and did module 6, I brought in one of my blue belts to work as his training dummy while I tested him. So it was a 2-hour test, and he passed it with flying colors. Probably had maybe 2 mistakes, but they were easily fixable, where I'd say to him, okay, instead of your left hand, use your right hand, and he'll go, oh, okay, and then he'll get it, and he'll do it right after that. But the trip after he came, so he was a Kama Jiu-Jitsu blue belt, came for another trip. We're going over blue belt module 1 now, and I did have him train with a blue belt of mine, and it was a good match, and he actually did come out on top, which I was very happy with. It kind of because, but what he was diligent in that when he went back home, he did exactly as I told him to do. He followed his assignments to the T, and he would message me and say, I did this," and I come back and, okay, now do this, right? And then he would go and do it. So then when he did come back for his next module, we'd kind of brush up on what he did. We'll answer any questions. Okay, when I was training back home, this was happening. So I'd go and fix that right away. Sometimes a simple fix, sometimes it wasn't, but most times a simple fix. Oh yeah, just do this instead. And then we'd fix that. So he was particularly diligent about it. and he is very successful at what he's done with his jujitsu. And yes, so the online versus the, and well, uh, but he does go through the online. In fact, he's brought his family members on as well, so they're all progressing online. I presume that I will be testing his nephew in a little bit. So we'll kind of see, right, if it's a repeatable thing. But yes, I mean, if you have a good training partner, our lessons are set up such that we give you all the details. Happy New Year, and we give you all the details, and that there's not much that we leave behind. Now, there are benefits of having your instructor there with you all the time. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, if you're focused and you're single-minded, you're determined, and you're driven, then nothing's going to stop you, right? But you just need to be disciplined, and that's the hardest part is being disciplined. So you need to work your ass off, right? And that's number 4. Work your ass off and doing it, and don't stop fighting. Don't stop doing this. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't, like I always say, it doesn't matter if it's jujitsu or in life. If you have a goal in mind, define it, go after it, ignore the people who tell you you can't do it, and just work for it and just do it, do it, do it, do it, right? You guys can't believe how much time Dave has spent on training Hickson. Hickson is the ultimate guy who works his ass off, right? Here's a guy who's 60 years old. I mean, his body is so hurt, right? But here's the funny thing is, some people would be really upset about that. Oh, I've done it all this years and my body is so hurt. And man, that's the one thing bad about this. No, Hickson that's my reward, right? How's that for a mindset change, right? He goes, all this pain I'm feeling, he goes, that is my reward for all the years of hard work that I've spent, right? And I think I might have said another video when Dave and I were in Sierra Vista, and there's absolutely nothing going on. Sierra Vista, Arizona. It's like a border town. There's nothing going on. There's an army base there. But to the point where we had to actually walk. We couldn't even get a Lyft or an Uber to go get our coffee in the morning. We had to walk to a grocery store where they had a Starbucks in there, and we got it. But the time that we're walking, Dave, I don't know if you ever seen Dave. If those of you who know Dave in person, you look at the guy, you look like he's been through some battles. I mean, just with his walking. So I'm walking the same way. And I've had some battles in my time too. I just got out of 2 shoulder surgeries. Right. This one was in September. This one was in November. So, I'm not training that much these days until I recuperate. But anyway, I asked him, I said, Dave, if you today were to come across, Dave Common in his 20s before he started jujitsu, would you tell him, would you warn him about everything you went through and how your body is right now? He says, absolutely not. He goes, I would do it all over again. And I thought about it, that's the same thing with me too. Right. I do it all over again. It's not, and then now and having talked to Hickson, he's saying, no, this is my reward. I get it. Right. That's kind of what I've been thinking, but I didn't quite know how to word it that way. So that's about working your ass off, right? Work your ass off. Don't let anybody stop you. And just because if you don't work your ass off, then you're going to do it half-assed. And then what's the use of that? Right. And that means you never achieved anything in life. People who achieve stuff, they're focused and they work their ass off to do it. So work your ass off, right? Now, it's a good time to stop. Any other questions? I got one more after this.
Question: can you speak on invisible jujitsu and how to roll, how much strength to use, what's the mindset, and what do you repeat to yourself like mantras to keep you on track to roll correctly?
Okay, so with the invisible jujitsu, one thing I'm going to tell you is that I can tell you on one hand, it doesn't, if you do it correctly, it doesn't take any strength. But in the same token, you cannot be fat and out of shape and weak and be any good in jujitsu. You need to have a certain level of conditioning. What the invisible does is it enables you to work as a multiplier without having to use any extra effort. So, invisible is, it can be the way you place your weight, right? I'll give you an example. So let's say you got the hook sweep, right? I've seen all kinds of counters to the hook sweep. I've seen them where you plant your head on the ground and you flip up in the air. I've seen it where you post your hand on the ground and you kick your hip out. And then there's the invisible way where your weight shifts in such a spot to where you can't even do the hook sweep, right? And it really literally is just a shift. And that alone, you don't really see it, but you feel it, right? On the other hand, for the other, I'm not saying that that's better or worse. It's just what's good for us. For the other counters I've seen to the hook sweep, you go, and when you go for that hook sweep, you just see the guy flying in the air. Next thing you know, he's cross-eyed. He's past your guard, and he's on top of you getting all, that's good, right? and I've seen it, but I just could never do it. I've learned it. I'm like, still can't do it. But I look at the invisible stuff as the stuff that you can do when you get old, right? When you're no longer acrobatic. Now, imagine if you are acrobatic, but you do the invisible stuff, then it makes you way more devastating because now you can conserve your energy, right? That's economies of motion, right? You don't have to move from here to there to succeed. You can just move from here to here, right? And that's one of the concepts for invisible. Another one that Hickson goes over a lot in seminars, for those of you who have had the luxury of attending a Hickson Gracie seminar, he shows the one where you're on your back and your opponent is right in front of you, right? And you've got your feet on him, right? Putting your feet on his hips, right? It's the same thing. The person who does it the traditional way, meaning you just put your feet on him, and what you're doing is you're trying to prevent your opponent from coming into you. So you're using your feet to push him away. With Hickson and the invisible concepts, it's really about placing weight from you through your feet onto your opponent's hips. So now all of a sudden your opponent needs to push in just to maintain his balance, but you don't lose any control. Now, it looks the same to somebody who is just watching. You do it one way versus the other, it looks exactly the same. If I were to do it one way, do it the non-invisible way, and if somebody's looking at me here, and I say, okay, now without turn around, now I'm gonna connect. Now turn back around. What do you see that's different? I don't know. I don't see anything different, right? Exactly. That's where the invisible comes in. It's funny because I've heard people kind of mock it. That's kind of weird. It's invisible. That's bullshit. But it really is because you feel it, right? And those of you who've never gotten to train with Hickson, it's unfortunate, but yes, you feel it with him. I feel it with Dave. I try to make my students feel it, and I try to have my students do it to me, right? It's just a simple shift your hip, put your weight here, put your weight there, or connect, right? That's another thing, the connection that Hickson talks about. Connecting it's another concept, but it's one of the invisible concepts where it looks the same, but it's not. So that one I just told you about the feet and the hips, when you put your weight on your feet by lifting your hips up a little bit and putting your feet weight on your opponent, that's connecting. Why? Because as your opponent circles around, guess what? You're going to follow him. On the other hand, if your hips on the ground with your feet just simply on him and touching him, when he moves, he'll leave you there, right? But if you're connected to him when he moves, you move with him. So now connection and invisible stuff is all over the place. It could be whether you're underneath, whether you're on top, whether you're passing a guard, whether you're getting past. There's all kinds of places, and it's just a matter of understanding it, understanding the concepts of it, and being able to apply it there. So hopefully that was a good explanation of invisible stuff, because I've seen it explained, and I'm thinking, sometimes I hear it, I'm like, I still don't understand what you're saying. Right? For the longest time, I didn't. But prior to coming to Dave, I had no clue what it was. I remember Hickson talking about it, but I didn't really understand it. But hopefully, that was a good explanation.
Realistically, at 50, how well should you perform against grapplers 20 and 30 years younger?
It depends. All things being equal, right? So let's say you're the same height, the same weight, and you're in the same level of conditioning. All things being equal, the difference between a 50-year-old grappler and a 20, 30-year-old grappler really is the gas tank. So you'll be good and you'll be going tit for tat for, let's say, 5, 10 minutes. But once minute 11 comes, once minute 15 comes, if you're still going, you're going to start losing steam, right? But if technically you're the same and you're in great shape, you're the best shape of your life, then the difference between somebody who's older and younger is the gas tank. Now, when it comes time to thinking of somebody who's 20 years old and somebody who's 50 years old, all else being equal, but you both come into jiu-jitsu on the same day, first time, the 20-year-old has a lot more headroom, as I call it, than the 50-year-old. The 20-year-old, assuming he's following through on these goals that we're talking about and these methods I'm talking about today, he'll get to black belt, whereas the 50-year-old may not. And part of it has to do with what I call, and I could be wrong on it, but I call it brain elasticity. It's like joints, right? When you're young, your joints are flexible and you can move and you got all this kind of range. But when you're older, you have less. Same thing with your brain. And the brain elasticity, the less elasticity you have, the less information you can take in and keep. But when you're young, you can take in a ton, right? So, but like I said, if you're both seasoned grapplers, and the age difference, then the difference is just in the gas tank.
Realistically, starting jiu-jitsu in your 30s, is it feasible to get a black belt within 10 years?
Without knowing you, I'd say yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, that whole thing about can the average person earn a black belt? The answer is no, right? But can the average person become above average to where they earn a black belt? Then the answer is yes. But we all have our own limitations. So I'm not trying to throw any cold water on you, right? I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm just telling you, if you're going to ask me as an instructor and knowing what I've seen, everybody doesn't get to black belt. Black belts are rare. They're supposed to be rarer than what I've seen because I've seen a lot of people wearing black belts and they don't know what they need to know. Basic stuff. But they're still relatively scarce when you think of the general population of people doing jujitsu. Now, that's why I always tell people never have the belt as your goal. Like I said earlier in the call, don't have the belt as your goal. Just try to learn everything. And as Dave says, learn how to move like a blue belt, learn how to move like a purple belt, move like a brown belt. And if you move like a black belt and you know all this stuff, then you're a black belt, right? Then, then that's where you're going to end up, right? Now, if I have the goal of getting to a coral belt, well, if we were not under the JJGF, then I would be 9 years. I'd have 11 more years. So now the question is, can I live another 11 years and still teach? Possibly, right? But under the JJGF, it's now that time frame has now moved up to, I guess, another 21 years, 22 years. So I'd have to be a teaching black belt for another 22 years. Now, how can I have a goal for something to get coral belt, 7th degree coral belt? How can I have a goal for something I have zero control over, right? I don't know if I'm going to live that long, right? I don't. All I can do is just do what I'm doing today, which is, spreading the word about Rickson Gracie's jiu-jitsu and growing Kama jiu-jitsu and trying to get more and more people, on the Kama jiu-jitsu train and helping you where I can, like I'm doing right now. That's really all I can do, right? Which then leads into the fifth point that we have, and that is to never just always take, but to find a way to give back, right? So people ask about the stripes and the blue belt, the degrees, right? If I had a black belt here, I'd show you, but I don't. The degrees don't necessarily reflect your ability to fight. The degrees represent your years teaching, you're giving back to the art, right? So if you're just a plain old white belt and you never taught, a black belt, and you never taught, right? So you went through all the ranks and you never taught and you have no desire to teach. With us, you'd have your black belt one of two ways. It'll either be all black all the way through, or it'll be black with a white bar in the end instead of that red bar that you see everywhere. Okay. Because you're not contributing to the art other than just your training and training with people and maybe benefiting that way. But you don't really teach. You help, but you don't teach, right? But let's say you teach a class at your school. Somebody else owns a school, and you just say, hey, you know what, professor, hey, I'm willing to teach every Friday. So you teach every Friday, right? And you've gone through the process, or you're beginning to go through the process of learning how to teach. Right now, you get the red bar on your belt, right? 2 years later, you get the professor bars, which are the white bars, the top and the bottom of the red bar, right? And then, as time goes on, you're getting your degrees. The degrees come because you're actively teaching, right? What was that question?
The one that I had asked you.
No, the one that just popped up.
Do you feel that Jiu-Jitsu has evolved according to a country? What's your opinion to the new saying, American Jiu-Jitsu?
As opposed to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the U.S. I don't know where I've seen that before. I don't know. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't really thought much about it, and I can't say that I really care, being that the jiu-jitsu that I do is what Dave teaches, is what Rickson teaches. So it's not American jiu-jitsu. Now, if people wanna say that, well, it's being done differently, like you got Eddie Bravo doing his no-gi stuff, and is that traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu? It's not. If you want to call that an example of American jiu-jitsu, then yeah, I mean, then I guess we do have an American jiu-jitsu. Now, do other people do it differently? I don't know. I mean, if you go into Russia and you have guys that have a sambo background that are now doing jiu-jitsu, would that be Russian jiu-jitsu? I don't know. I mean, it's not really an idea that I think about much. I just do Gracie jiu-jitsu, and greetings to you. Um, Yeah, so I just do Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. When people ask me, do I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I'm like, I do Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. If that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, then it is. But then you got a lot of Americans that are Gracie family members. Crone, he's an American. Is what he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I don't know. You got to ask him. He'll probably just tell you it's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. But it's regardless of where that Jiu-Jitsu is. I mean, it started in Brazil, but I never did call what we did BJJ. I mean, it's always been GJJ, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, until Kama Jiu-Jitsu, and now it's KJJ. Now, is it different from what Hickson does? No, it's not. So, is it our own brand of Jiu-Jitsu? No, it's not. Because neither Dave nor I, I'm not smart enough to tell Dave what to do as far as Jiu-Jitsu and how to improve it. Because Dave's just that much better. I'm still learning from him, right? I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu 32 years now, 2021. And Dave's been doing it for like 36, 37 years. He's still learning from Hickson. I'm still learning from Dave. And then I learned from Hickson too, but I'm not smart enough in my mind to have my own Jiu-Jitsu. And the reason why Kama Jiu-Jitsu is because, Kama Jiu-Jitsu, Hickson Gracie team, it's because when around 2011 or 2012, Dave was running Hickson Gracie Laguna Niguel. And he was running it since like 1993 or 94 or something like that. Because Hickson had 3 studios initially. He had Oxnard, he had the main one in West LA on Pico, and he had Laguna Niguel. Chris Saunders took over Oxnard, and he then closed it. And I think and I know he's over down at Gracie University now. And then Hickson ran the West LA one until he didn't, and then Dave ran Laguna Niguel all the way through. And then in 2011, 2012, in a conversation he had with Dave, he told Dave, well, Oxnard's been long closed, West LA's closed because he gave his school to Crone. So now Crone had his own school. And he told Dave, I'm retired now, so there's not going to be any Hickson Gracie school anymore. So this is the last one. Dave, I need you to take it over. I need you to change the name of it, and then whatever name you put, if you want to, Hickson Gracie team. So that's how Kama Jiu-Jitsu, Hickson Gracie team came about. But yeah, so long answer, you can have different Jiu-Jitsu by country, but people are going to identify whatever they're teaching, they're going to identify it with however they want to. So I hope that answered your question. Anything?
First off, what surgeries are done to your shoulders? Do you stop training altogether, or can you talk about tips for coming back from shoulder surgeries?
Okay, so these are the first times that I've ever had shoulder surgeries. Mine were not really bad. So I've not had torn rotator cuffs, for instance. I think on this side, what they had to do, it's a different procedure, but what he had to do was he had to actually go in because I don't know what the 2 bones are. They would separate. They're supposed to kind of, I guess, move around like this, but mine would actually do this. And doctor, after he looked at it, said, I don't even know how you train with shoulders like this for many years. And I just, it's just one of those things, you suck it up and you just go, right? Being injured or being sore isn't going to stop me from training. But what he ended up having to do was he said he had to move my tendons in this way so that I would have a cushion here because my cartilage is gone. So he moved them in this way so that the tendons would then be able to go against each other rather than being bone on bone. Went in here and he injected stem cells into it, which is, I guess, the latest thing, right? And that was done on this shoulder. This shoulder, what he had was, this is done late September. This is done in late November, right before our Thanksgiving basket drive, by the way. I don't know if you guys got to watch that video, but I was in a sling that day, so I wasn't picking any turkeys up that day. But this one, what he did is he had to go in because there's a lot of cartilage that was torn and floating around there. He had to go in and arthroscopically remove it all. And then he went and put some stem cells in that too. Now, as far as the rehab goes, it's all about right now. It's about getting my range back. Right. So it is kind of tight. It's not really bad, though, because like I said, I didn't have torn rotator cuffs. But, I don't have all my strength back in my shoulders. Right. Push-ups are really hard. In fact, push-ups, I can't do them yet. They tell me hold off on it. Although I did kind of, get stupid in the studio once and do them. And I had a couple of students stop me. Whoa, don't do that. Don't. But yeah, so hopefully by, I don't know when, but I'll be training soon, hopefully, and getting back on the mat. And there's going to be a time in which I'm going to have to ramp up all over again because I've pretty much been out of it. I'm still in the studio, I'm still teaching, but I'm having to use my instructors as reasonable facsimiles to do what I do, right? So yeah, that's kind of where is that the one? I think I answered it.
Yeah, you answered.
Okay.
What do you think about Uchimata for Jiu-Jitsu?
It's a good throw. Any judo throw is good if you can make it work. Some throws are a little harder to make, but the uchimata, for somebody who's very good in it, especially with jujitsu guys who kind of bend over a lot when they're kind of, if you can just reach up at the top and you get your hip under them and throw them, why not, right? Um, I love watching judo guys in jiu-jitsu tournaments though, because I did watch Yuki Nakai once. He came, I remember he was in town. I don't know which one it was, somewhere in Southern California. Probably was at the Brent Center, which was the either Joe Morera or the Pan Ams, one of those. And he came in with a bunch of guys all from Japan, all very good in judo, and they were just tossing everybody. And the ones who figured out that they were tossing everybody, those guys just go straight to their butt and just scoot in on them and not let them throw them. But yeah, I love watching good judo in a jujitsu tournament.
Do you think that there's a difference in quality style of Gracie and Machado schools?
I think they're teaching different jujitsu in my mind. Of course, if you ask one group, they're going to say no, it's all the same. But there's a distinct difference between them, and that difference actually started back in like the early '90s, mid '90s, where the Machados would concentrate less on the self defense and the Gracies more on the self defense. So if you just have a straight jujitsu competition. I remember there was one instance where the Machados brought over a team to the Gracie Academy, and they just mopped the floors with them. I think it was like out of 20 matches, I think the Machados won like 19 of them. It was just utter destruction. Um, but there's a number of different variables in there. What kind of were the guys in the Machados mostly athletes? Whereas when I was at Gracie Academy, it was mostly professionals. There were dentists and engineers and all. That was the kind of people that and I was an analyst at a money management firm, right? So, um, what type of people were the members that were there? But also the question is, okay, well, if punches were flying and kicks and all that, if those kind of stuff were able to be done, would the outcome have been different? I have no idea. Um, but the Machados, they learned right alongside the Gracie family. When they were at that ranch, that I don't know, 30-bedroom house and 33 bathrooms in it or whatever, and two kitchens and they're eating in shifts and all that, stuff that Helson would tell me about. They were all there. Jean-Jacques Machado is famous for having learned under Hickson for a number of years until his teens. So at the end of the day, they all learned the same thing. What they did with it after that, I don't know because I had minimal exposure to Haji Machado when I was in California, but like I said, it was minimal exposure. I didn't really get to know much about him or his jujitsu. So if you're asking me, I don't know. Without actually spending some time and training with any of the Machado brothers, I really don't know what they're doing that we're not. But and vice versa.
Do you recommend any books for techniques?
Uh, nah. Books are hard to learn from only because they're just like stills, right? It's hard to see, when you watch in a video, an online type session teaching you that same concept, you can see the footwork, you can see where the foot goes at every step of the move. Whereas from a book, it's difficult. Now, if you have no other resource other than a book, by all means, get a book. Um, yeah, but it's just books to me are, if it's other than mindset things that don't have to do with the technique, books are kind of outdated in my mind to learning jujitsu, right?
What are your thoughts on competition and training? Should it be something you do to test yourself?
That's a good question. For us, we don't ever mandate somebody competes. However, if they're gonna compete, I think it's a useful thing, right? So what I'll often do is there might be a couple of people that I have in mind who I think competing will benefit. And I'll ask them. I said, "Hey, there's going to be a competition coming up. I got maybe one or two people already wanting to compete. Is this something you might want to do?" And they'll think about it, and they either say yes or no. If they say yes, then it's like, okay, we have this much time. Let's kind of, have you start coming in on weekends, and we're gonna have to start preparing you. In the meantime, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, every time I see them in class during the week, I'm I'm kind of giving them some extra workouts or some extra things to do so that they can succeed as best as I can help them to succeed. But if you say no, then no, then just continue doing what you're doing. Now, is there a benefit to do it? Obviously, there is, because it depends on how you think of it. If you're one of those who gets the butterflies and all that, get nervous, and your heart rate starts going up when you're about to step on the mat, then yes, it'll help you because it'll teach you how to deal with that. On the other hand, if you're just that person who goes onto the mat and you're just kind of like, duh, 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 one thing I'm thinking of is, the Emelianenko brothers. The funniest was not Fedor, but his brother. I can't remember what his name was, and he fought Kevin Randleman, I think. And Randleman was just all, like all hyped and stuff. And then, that the Fedor's brother was just kind of like, duh, and he looked like he just got on bed. His hair was all messed up and nothing. And then once that bell rang, he just went after him, picked him up. In fact, he got thrown, and then he went ahead and submitted him. So for him, competition, probably doesn't help him all that much versus his training because he's already done enough of them. But if you're like that and you're cold as a cucumber, then will it benefit you? I don't know. It probably won't make you any better, but it'll be good to essentially think of it as training with somebody who's not in your academy, who you don't train with now. Well, let me train with some new people, and that's a good way to do it. And at the same time, they're going after you. They're not going easy on you. They're not just going to play. They're actually going to go after you. So that's kind of a good thing in that way. So somebody was a member at the Laguna School in the 90s. That's pretty good. That goes way back.
There's another one. Do you think Jiu-Jitsu will make its way to the Olympics one day? Would you like it to be?
Being what the Olympics have done to judo, I'd say no. But if it's like an IBJJF thing, I guess they could do it. But I think there are powers that be that control IBJJF jiu-jitsu, so it probably won't make it to the Olympics. But the Olympics kind of ruined judo, in my opinion. So I wouldn't want to see jiu-jitsu go that way. Not me. That's it.
That's it for now.
And yep.
One came in. COVID caused my Culver City Academy to close its doors permanently. Any suggestions where I should go now?
Was that Crone School? I know Crone closed the school. If you can make it down to Orange County, I'd say come down to Dave's. If I could be at Dave's every day, I would. What do I think about the IBJJF league? Yeah. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. So I guess it was Crohn's. Yeah. So really, the only real alternative I can tell you is to just come down to Dave's. Dave's known Crone ever since he was a baby. In fact, those of you who saw the choke video, yeah, Crone moved. I think he lives in Montana or Idaho now. If you look at that old choke video with Hickson in it, Dave, a lot of Dave's job while over there, helping Hickson was to help keep an eye on Crone. But yeah, so he knows Crone, and Dave's had a good relationship with the family, and if anybody can teach Hickson jiu-jitsu, it's Dave. So as far as heading down from Culver City down to Orange County, that's what I would do, right? If I knew where Dave was earlier, I would have, but Dave was impossible to find.
As a small 150-pound, 40-year-old blue belt who wants to compete, what advice do you have for choosing training partners? I feel like I'm smaller than everyone at my gym, and it's hard to work technique.
Well, I was that guy. In fact, I was a little lighter than 150 pounds. When I was, I guess, when I was a blue belt, I was probably about 135 to 145 pounds. Purple belt is, I think, about 145. But when I was at Kenny Gabrielson school, everybody was bigger than me. When I was at Hickson school, there were some people that were about my size, so it was easier. But what you need to do is you just need to focus on beating your opponents when you're that small. The only way you can beat guys that are big is technically. Now, if you're going to compete, though, here's going to be the problem. Big guys, let's say they're over 200 pounds. If they're between, say, 185 and 200 pounds, that to me, actually 185 to 210, that's like the perfect place to be size wise. Provided you're lean, provided you're not a fat 200 pounds. If you're lean and you're reasonably flexible, I mean, that's the sweet spot, meaning you're fast enough to be technical and you're heavy enough to deal with big, strong guys. But when you're 150 pounds, you have to just be technical. And the only way you can beat guys bigger than you is to technically beat them. When I say technically, I don't mean on technicality. I mean technically, meaning you're able to get to positions better, quicker, faster, stronger, not stronger, but better, faster, quicker, and more technically than somebody else is, and be able to then hold your position long enough to be able to submit them. So you need to get more technical, basically increase your T, right? Those of you who've been with us for a while, or those of you who go back and binge watch our old videos, you say your physicality plus your technicality equals your overall game. Um, right? You need to increase your technicality because you have no physicality to increase versus the guys that are bigger, stronger than you. Now, when it comes to competing, you're going to be competing against guys that are about your same size. Here's a problem: guys that are about your same size, they'll be just as technical as you are, presumably speaking, right? Because they're going to be the smaller guys in their gyms too, and they're going to be having to beat guys that are bigger than them, just like the way you are. So it's going to be a little bit different in that they're not necessarily going to move as slowly or as strongly. They're going to be a lot more wily, more slippery, more wiry, and that's going to be an adjustment too if you don't have any training partners that size. So just try to be the best you can be, and just let the chips fall where they're going to fall when you compete.
When you say judo was ruined by the Olympics, do you mean it became too much of a sport and came away from self-defense?
So judo as a self-defense, really, it comes down to current judo. It's throw the guy down and slam him on the concrete, right? That'll the ground hits harder than anybody can punch you. Yes, that's true. But if you look at the kind of habits that people do in judo, right? When they do a nice, beautiful throw, right? The throw ends the match. Well, there are times when you're going to get into a fight and you throw somebody and you don't end the match there. Maybe it's not a perfect throw. Maybe he didn't land on his head. Maybe he knows how to break fall and he continues a fight and you're going to have to continue fighting. There's no ref to raise a hand up and saying ippon and you're done, right? You're going to have to keep fighting. Now, where I think the Olympics ruined judo was that it took a lot of the incentive to do the newaza, the ground fighting, out. Right? There's very little incentive anymore. Right now, when you have somebody like Travis Stevens who takes his silver medal judo and learns jujitsu, that is to me back to being the ultimate combination of the original judo. Right, Camarillo brothers. Right, those guys were before they started jujitsu. From what I understand, they were national level, if not international level, competitors. The two brothers, and you add the jujitsu to the judo that they do, and it's phenomenal, right? I love watching those guys go. Um, Now, if the rule set was such that you could allow more time on the ground, then I think that would make it better, and it would then force people to be more rounded in their original judo and not so concentrating on the tachiwaza, which is a stand up for those of you who don't know. Anyway, so that's my opinion on judo. Judo people need jujitsu, in my opinion, and vice versa. So BJJ, in my mind, they just do groundwork. People say I'm just gonna do my jits. They're talking just my groundwork, right? I don't like that. It's just you should have the whole art as much as you can.
What's the most important things to think about when training every day? Daily keystones, most important concepts we need to repeat in our mind.
What's the most important things to think about when training every day?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on what level you're at. Um, and once you've learned all the individual concepts, so for us it's mount class, then it's cross-side class, this is all on the bottom, and then it's passing guard, and then it's playing guard, and then it's cross-side class on the top and mount class on the top. Once you've learned all of that, then it's just a matter of concentrating on whichever one you're not the best at. I mean, the best versus everything else, not the best versus everyone else. I mean, everything else. So if I'm very comfortable, if I'm a big strong guy and I'm very comfortable in cross-side class top, right? And I'm very comfortable in mount class top. Then I need to be where I'm not comfortable. And I'm not comfortable having somebody on top of me in cross side, or somebody on top of me in mount, or somebody having my back. So that's what I need to go in thinking I'm gonna strive for that day, right? Or it could be not only a day, it could be a month, it could be a year, right? If I'm a black belt and somebody takes my back and I can't get out of that, guess what I'll be working on for the next year, or until I can find that guy, that person, take my back again, let me get out. And once I learn to get out, then I'll look for something else to move on to.
Um, how do you overcome holding back or not being aggressive enough to follow through on techniques?
Oh, okay. So that's what Dave calls you got to take a me day, right? If you're always holding back, you're letting people have stuff, you're letting people get advantage of you, that actually ends up kind of putting you in the wrong mindset, to where if you come across somebody who's unusually aggressive in his training, then you're going to be defending the whole way, right? So what you need to do is every once in a while, let's say you're a whole lot better than everybody you're training with. Every once in a while, maybe every 5 day training days or every month or whatever, you take a me day. What is a me day? A me day is where you just go and destroy everybody, right? You don't let them have anything. You don't let them get out of that arm. You don't let them get out of the choke. You don't let them have position. You pass their guard. You get on top of them and you make them go, ugh, while you have that knee on belly and you sink that choke in and you take that arm, or you gift wrap them and you smash them into the ground and you put that rear naked choke on and you lock it on, right? That's a me day, right? And I first learned about that, right, with Dave, right? He took a me day, and I was already a black belt. I thought I was doing pretty well because he would let me have this, have that, have this. I thought, wow, I'm actually doing pretty well, right? And I get my black belt, and he and I would train not only in the studios on Tuesday, Thursday, but we train at my house on Sundays with Professor Fernando. And I'm doing really well against him. I'm passing his half guard. I'm getting arm. I'm getting choke, and I get position on him. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm getting really good. Because I know how good Dave is, right? I'm doing really well. And then one day he tells me, pass my guard. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, like I do every time. And what does he do? He puts his hands in his belt and he just grabs his belt. So that means basically he wants me to pass with no hands. And he just kept breaking my guard. Bang, 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 slap my head here, slap my head there. And just moving me. And he sweeps and gets up on top of me, all no hands, right? Doing that invisible connected guard that he does, right? And then I'm like, what the hell? And I asked him later on, and I said, Dave, you're just messing with me. What's going on? I mean, all these years, I thought I was doing pretty well. And then all of a sudden, this day comes and you destroy me, right? And I'm like, what's going on here? He goes, I needed a me day that day. And that was his me day. His me day was just destroying me. He knew the whole time that he could destroy me. I didn't know that. I thought I was doing really well. And I was. But relative to where he was at that time, nah, he was just destroying me. And then he decided that day he was going to make me the nail. And he did. And I got nailed. That whole Karate Kid, right? One time, boom, one time. He did that to me repeatedly. And yeah, my head didn't feel good the time I was hitting the mat when he was tossing me off to the side with his legs around me. But yeah, I couldn't even open his guard. I mean, it was that bad. Um, okay, what else?
Um, for someone who wants to learn Kama Jiu Jitsu but lives in another country which has no Hickson professors there, and I'm in the middle of my uni studies, so I can't relocate, what is your advice?
Combat Jiu-Jitsu online. Simple. And grab a training partner. I mean, basically, when I started jujitsu, I was in, as you say, uni as well, except I was University of Hawaii. But I was lucky in that I had Grandmaster Helson teaching there as well, so I got to learn directly under him.
I heard Helsing Gracie say in an interview that his jiu-jitsu book would be 8 pages long, I think. One page for guard, one page for mount, and so on. Does Professor Ryan know anything about this?
No, I don't. I mean, but knowing what I know about Helson, it would make total sense. I mean, his game is very, as Kenny Gabrielson says, very rice and beans, right? There's nothing complicated about that. It's just effective as all heck. Um, Helson's a badass, right? As simple as that. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's in the execution. The same thing with Hickson. It's just that he's in trying to teach his execution. There are actually other things that he's thinking of as well. He's doing simple closed guard. Well, simple to you and me, but it's actually very, extremely high level. Same thing with Helson. So him having an 8-page book, yeah, I could see it happening, but it's still only going to be scratching the surface of what he does. It's not really going to be what he does.
Within the rigid time structure of class, I find it tricky to get enough reps in so that I'm not thinking so much when I roll. Is there a strategy to get more reps? Should I buy mats for home?
Yeah, buying mats is always a good idea. I've had mats in my house ever since I've had a house, which was since 1994. Um, my very first house, one of the first major purchases I made was mats. So, rolling in class. See, that's the thing that I have a problem with. It's rolling. Schools spend way too much time rolling and not enough time doing positional drilling. It should be to where in class, your positional drilling takes up a big chunk of time. And let's say you're doing guard pass drills. You should have passed or at least attempted to pass a guard 50 times easily. But a lot of times, 50 times under stress, not just 50 times, just going through the motions, right? You eventually gonna have to get to the point where you set the timer and you go, for a person, one on the bottom, one on the top, in the guard, person in the guard, pass the guard, person on the bottom, don't let them pass the guard. And once you pass the guard, get back in guard, do it all over again. When you pass the guard, get back in guard, do it all over again. But what everybody does is they pass the guard, they keep going. They go to mount, they go try to set up an Americana, they try to choke and all that. But, after the bell rings, they only pass the guard once. It's not going to help you guard pass. Didn't help. In fact, you just wasted that time. After class is over, then roll all you want, right? After you've done your 50, 100 reps, whatever. It's my opinion.
If you are a long distance kind of jiu-jitsu student, white belt, and you have to pick a physical local sports jiu-jitsu school, and your choice is between Hendo Gracie's versus Gracie Baja, which would you pick?
Don't know. Haven't been to either one.
That's it.
I don't know. Are we good? We're all done with questions?
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us here. And I hope you have a nice and prosperous 2021. Train hard. Don't let anybody, have I modified my, one more thing. Have I modified my waiver too? I think we have actually modified our waiver for COVID. But COVID's done so much to us, so much negative for us in 2020. But yeah, let's all have a great 2021. Make sure to focus on your training. Make sure to focus on your mindset, and let's have a great year. And we'll be in touch with you for the rest of the, during the coming year with more videos. And if you have any questions, go and post them below. We'll talk to you guys. Happy New Year. Take care now. Bye. Ooh.